So fourth chapter, verse number 3, today we will be covering. Say, chapter 4, verse number 3. Sa evāyaṁ mayā adya yogaḥ proktaḥ purātanaḥ bhaktosi me sakhā ceti rahasyam etad uttamam. Sakhā, the same. Eva, certainly. Ayam, this. Mayā, by me. Te, unto you. Adya, today. Yogaḥ, the science of yoga. Proktaḥ, spoken. Purātanaḥ, very old. Bhaktaḥ, devotee. Asi, you are. Me, my. Sakhā, friend. Cha, also. Iti, therefore. Rahasyam, mystery. He, certainly. Etad, this. Uttamam, transcendental. Translation by his divine grace, Lord Prabhupada ki jai. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of the science. Everybody can repeat. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of the science. Purport. There are two classes of men, namely the devotee and the demon. The Lord selected Arjuna as the recipient of this great science owing to his being a devotee of the Lord. But for the demon, it is not possible to understand this great mysterious science. There are a number of editions of this great book of knowledge. Some of them have commentaries by the devotees, and some of them have commentaries by the demons. Commentation by the devotees is real, whereas that of the demons is useless. Arjuna accepts Śrī Kṛṣṇa as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and any commentary on the Gita following in the footsteps of Arjuna is real devotional service to the cause of this great science. The demoniac, however, do not accept Lord Kṛṣṇa as he is. Instead, they concoct something about Kṛṣṇa and mislead general readers from the path of Kṛṣṇa's instructions. Here is the warning about such misleading paths. One should try to follow the disciplic succession from Arjuna and thus be benefited by this great science of Śrīmad Bhagavad-gītā. Om ajñānatimirandhasya jñānāñjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Śrī Gurave namaha. Śrī Chaitanya manobishtam sthapitam yena bhutale swayam rupakada mahyam dadati swapadantikam. Vandeham Śrī Guru Śrī Yuta Padakamalam Śrī Gurun Vaishnavamscha Śrī Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Śrī Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Vishakam Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Śrī Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. So in this chapter today we'll be talking on this transcendental knowledge. First of all, let us understand what is this transcendental knowledge. So Krishna said in 4th chapter about transcendental knowledge. What is the transcendental knowledge? This material world, right from the lowest planet to highest planet, everywhere there is influence of 3 modes of material nature. Krishna says in 18th chapter 48th verse, Natadasti prithivyaṁ va divideveshu va punaha Sattvam prakriti jayanmuktam yadebi syat tribir gunai. From the everywhere in the material world there is influence of the 3 modes of material nature. The knowledge that is above these 3 modes is called transcendental knowledge. So knowledge that is above the 3 modes is called transcendental knowledge. So today we will be reading the third verse. So before we start this 4th chapter, I want to connect you how the 3rd chapter ended so that we can connect to 4th chapter. So 3rd chapter, the last section spoke about lust. Beware of lust. So Arjuna asked in 36th verse of the 3rd chapter, Athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anicham api varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. He is saying that by what is, Arjuna said, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force. So, by what is one impelled to sinful acts? So, a person, he has some knowledge, he knows that doing this activity is wrong and it is also sin, but still he does that activity. What is that thing that causes him to do, even unwillingly, he doesn't want to do it, but still he does it? What is that force that is pushing him to do even against his own will? He doesn't want to do it, but he is still doing it. So what is that force that is pushing him to do the sinful activity even with unwillingly? He doesn't want to do it, but he is still doing it. So this is Arjuna's question. By what is one impelled to sinful acts even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Krishna, the question is there, the direct question, the direct answer as well. Śrī Bhagavan-uvaca kāmayesha krodayesha rajoguna samudbhavaha mahashano mahapapma vidhenam mihavairinam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. This lust is the one that is keeping us very tightly bound to this material world. So the highest degree of enjoyment in the material world is sex. So our eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust when we come in contact with material nature. That eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust. So as milk comes in contact with tamarind, it, like that, this pure love for Krishna, Atmendriya Priti Ichha Tare Balikama, Krishnendriya Priti Ichha Dare Premanama. So whatever actions we do for our own sense gratification is called Kama, and whatever activities we do for the pleasure of the Lord is called Prema. So this is what is keeping us tight in this material world. So what is this lust? And what are the sitting places of this lust? So what are the sitting places of this lust? Mind, intelligence and mind, senses, mind and intelligence. And also Krishna says 3 degrees of lust covering the living entity. What is that? As fire covered by smoke, as mirror covered by dust, as embryo is covered by the womb. Similarly, this lust covers the living entity in different degrees. So what is that? Fire covered by smoke is compared to human beings because the thickness of lust is less in human form. Still we can revive our consciousness by little bit Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karayudai. Like by doing that we can revive our consciousness. So fire covered by smoke is compared to human beings. Mirror covered by the dust is compared to animals and beasts. And then The last one is embryo covered by the womb is compared to the trees. Too much exhibition of lust. We saw in Nalakuvera and Manigriva how when Narada Muni came, they could not respect this great sage. Too much intoxicated by this richness and too much with wine and women, they couldn't recognize the great sage. So Narada Muni cursed them to become trees. So this is then Krishna says what are the different degrees of lust, and then he says what are the sitting places of this lust: senses, mind and intelligence. So to control the lust, first we should regulate what? Senses. In the beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So that is why lust is we have to be very careful. So first we have to regulate the senses. Then Krishna says, Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. The senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Then Krishna says that in the last verse of the third chapter, Evam buddhe param buddha samsthapyat manamatmana jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam. So how to control this lust? The last verse of this chapter, Krishna is telling, thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So how does even this lust begin? Krishna says in second chapter of Bhagavad-gītā 61 and 62 and 63, Dhyayato vishayan pumshah sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho bijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammoha smriti vibramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. From such attachment, lust develops. From lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises. From delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. When intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. These are the 8 stages of fall down. How a person, while contemplating, first there is a contemplation, then by that contemplation next stage is attachment, then want to enjoy. So like that all these stages go on. Then Krishna also says that how this lust is the greatest enemy of a living entity. In 16th chapter, 21st verse, Krishna says, Trividham narakasyedam dvaram nashanamatmanaha kamakrodhastatha lobhas tasmade tatrayam tyajet. There are 3 gates leading to this hell. What are the 3 gates leading to hell? Lust, anger and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. So this lust is the thing that is keeping us very tightly shackled. Like when somebody does shop stealing or theft, what do the police do? They will shackle them, right, by the cuffs. Similarly, in the material world, we are cuffed by this lust, which keeps us very much tightly entangled. We cannot get out. So that is the highest enjoyment in the material world is the sex. So one should purify the intelligence, spiritual. That is what today we are reading. So why do people commit sin? Because of ignorance. When knowledge is there, ignorance is lost. So that is what here in this Krishna Surya Sama, Maya hai andhakar, Yahan Krishna tahan nahi Mayara adhikar. Wherever there is Krishna, there is no possibility of Maya to enter. So they cannot, the light and darkness, they cannot coexist. Any one thing can exist. If there is light, there cannot be darkness. If there is darkness, there cannot be light. So this transcendental knowledge. So Krishna is giving in this chapter how to conquer this lust by transcendental knowledge. So Krishna spoke a lot about Nishkama Karma Yoga. So this Nishkama Karma Yoga leads to transcendental knowledge. So in this chapter, in the very beginning, Krishna is talking about parampara. How to get this transcendental knowledge? What is the system to get this transcendental knowledge? So in the very first verse of this chapter, Krishna is telling, Śrī Bhagavan uvacha imam vivashvate yogam proktaḥ evāyaṁ vivashvan manave praha manurikshva kave bravit. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivashvan, and Vivashvan instructed it to Manu. Who is Manu? He is the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. That's how the chain of disciplic succession came. So first, initially, Krishna instructed it to sun god. Who is sun god? Vivashvan. And Vivashvan instructed it to Manu. Who is Manu? The father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. So these Manus, Manvantara, like especially in the 8th canto of Śrīmad Bhagavatam, Krishna has very elaborately explained about this in the 8th canto of Śrīmad Bhagavatam, all about Manvantaras, like all these 14 Manvantaras in one day of Brahma, 14 Manus will come, and they write the law books for mankind called Manu Samhita and all. So that is how these Manus are also they received this knowledge from Vivashvan, and then Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. So it is very, very important that these great kings, they are not ordinary kings, like when next verse we'll be reading. Evāyaṁ parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakāleneha mahata yogo nashtaha parantapa. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. So this science, when Krishna gave to all these great kings, then as the time passed, yogo nashta parantapa, sakāleneha mahata. As the passage of time, this supreme science, yogo nashtaha parantapa, this succession was broken. Therefore, again Krishna spoke this Bhagavad-gītā to Arjuna. So why did Krishna choose Arjuna specifically? Because Arjuna was his friend, bhakto sime sakhā ceti. He was his devotee as well as my friend, as well as Krishna's friend. That's why Krishna chose to give this knowledge to Arjuna. Not only that, Arjuna had another qualification. What was that other qualification that Arjuna possessed? Was he was never envious of Krishna. This is very important quality. Krishna says in the 9th chapter, very first verse, idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyam yanasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajnatva mokshase shubhat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. So these were the 3 qualifications that Arjuna possessed. What were the 3 qualifications? He was friend, he was devotee, he was never envious of Krishna. That is the qualification that Arjuna received this knowledge. Because you are never, and what is 9th chapter entitled? The most confidential knowledge. Krishna is giving this most confidential knowledge to Arjuna. Because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Very, very important chapter, 9th chapter. Krishna says, Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram Midamuttamam Pratyaksha Dharmyam Susukam Kartumavayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the secret of all secrets. There are so many secrets, right? This is the most secret of all secrets. Krishna is revealing to Arjuna because he was never envious of him. So these were the 3 qualifications that Arjuna possessed to receive this knowledge. So all the kings, these rishis, these Raja rishis, they were not ordinary kings, they were saintly kings. They were very Krishna conscious. Yudhishthir Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj, King Priyavrata, and Swayambhuva Manu, they were all very great kings. They were Raja Rishis. They just performed their kingly duties just because as a matter of duty only they did. They were not very much in materialistic consciousness at all. We saw how King Priyavrata didn't wanted to become king actually, but he was instructed because there was a need to have a king there, so that's why he became a king. But still all these kings, even though they did, like Janak Maharaj, we read in the 3rd chapter, Krishna gives the example of Janak Maharaj, how he performed his prescribed duties. So like this, all these kings, they were Raja Rishis, they were not ordinary kings. So first Krishna imparted this knowledge to these kings. Why? Because the role of the king is very, very important. They will lead their citizens, not just protecting them from not only physically but also spiritually. Because they were so Krishna conscious, they led the people also in a very God conscious civilization. That's what in the very first purport we read that these kings, they led the people through education, culture and devotion. These were the 3 things that they taught people what they practiced. We read in the 3rd chapter, Yatyadacharati shrestas tattadevetaro jana sayam. That verse, Krishna says that Yadyadacharati shrestas tattadevetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. Whatever action great man performs, common men follow. Whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. That is why it is very important for the kings to be educated in the spiritual knowledge of Krishna consciousness. This Bhagavad-gītā, not only Bhagavad-gītā, Bhagavatam, everything, so that they can impart, they can practice achar, vichar, prachar. They can practice themselves in their lives, and then they can show by their actions to the people and how setting a proper example. So these great leaders, they have a very high responsibility of, like Rishabhadev also says in Bhagavatam that one should not become father, mother, teacher, guru and all this. They are very responsible positions because so many citizens are depending on them. So they have to show them proper example by their activities, lead them on the right path by education, culture and devotion. So that is why not only these kings, anywhere, even in the material world, so many places there are leaders. Even in our companies, maybe outside, in the outside corporate world, could be anywhere. Wherever there are leaders, they should be well educated in this, so that they know, they have this knowledge. They are given training. Training is very important, so that they can impart this knowledge to everyone, so that they can understand it very well and follow the path led by the great people. So here Prabhupada says in the purport that there are many commentaries. People write so many commentaries, but the devotees, because they have assimilated this knowledge through parampara, they can give proper purport. They can write in Krishna consciousness, not adding their own interpretations. Like people, they want to, like many people, there are so many editions of Bhagavad-gītā, so many people, they completely give their own interpretations, and like we have 4 defects of a conditioned soul. What are those 4 defects? To commit mistakes, cheating propensity, illusion, cheating propensity, imperfect senses. So it's very important to give this knowledge. When in the Krishna consciousness, if you write like Prabhupada, why did he say Bhagavad-gītā as it is? Whatever he heard from parampara, that's what he gave this knowledge. That is why on Bhagavad-gītā it is written as it is. Nothing is added. His own interpretation like that. That is why it is very, very authentic. A tree is known by the fruit it bears. Like Prabhupada, like so many people, when I tell, like when I go out and ask, did you read Bhagavad-gītā, sister? Yes, we read Bhagavad-gītā many times. But what is the use? Have you put it into practice? That is like many people say, oh yes, we have Bhagavad-gītā, we are worshipping that. Very good, worship. Not only doing Aarti, if you open and read, that is the real worship you can do. That open the book and read what is the contents of the book. Then that puja is good. You read and also do puja. We are also doing puja, but we are reading and then doing puja. So that is the real thing we have to, people, oh, I have read Bhagavad-gītā many times. So, but like Prabhupada wrote this Bhagavad-gītā as it is, and so many devotees, so many people, they read this book and they became devotees. A tree is known by the fruit it bears. So how Prabhupada has given Bhagavad-gītā as it is without even adding anything of his own, that is why it is so authentic. Today we are able to become Krishna conscious by reading this pure knowledge that is given in parampara. Evāyaṁ parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu. So this knowledge is received through the chain of disciplic succession. Then that knowledge is intact. It's not, nothing is interpreted according to their own whims. So also in Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 1st chapter, 4th verse, is it possible to put that, Prabhu? 10th canto, 1st chapter, verse 4. It is also said that how we have to hear Krishna's pastimes in parampara. Okay, before we put that, I'll just little bit summarize what. Then Arjuna asks a question to Krishna. Arjuna uvacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivashvatah katemetad vijaniyan tvam madhav proktavaniti. How am I to understand that in the beginning the sun god Vivashvan is senior by birth to you? How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? This Arjuna's this question gives Krishna an opportunity to reveal about his own self, transcendental knowledge about himself, who he is, when does he come, why does he come, what is the nature of his birth and activities. That is, Arjuna asked this question that the sun god Vivashvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed the science to him? Then Krishna is saying, what is the difference between us and Krishna? Krishna is telling, Sri Bhagavan uvacha bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetha parantapa. Many births you and I have passed, but what is the difference between you and me? I can remember all of them, but you cannot. Why Krishna is able to remember all his births and why Arjuna is not able to remember?
Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, his Supreme Personality, that is a known fact. 1st chapter, 4th verse. So why Krishna is able to remember, why we are not able to remember? What's that?
Senses are perfect, internet senses.
We are changing our bodies. Krishna doesn't change his body. There is no difference between Krishna's body and soul. Whereas for us it is. We are not these material bodies, we are eternal spirit souls. Krishna doesn't change his body. His body is very ever youth. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyam purāna navayavvanam cha. How old was Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? 125 years old. If you see any person 125 years old, how will he be? Completely bent, wrinkled. Was Krishna looking like that? Navayavvanam cha. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyam purāna navayavvanam cha. Looking very beautiful. Have you seen any picture Krishna looking very old, wrinkled with a stick in his hand? So Krishna's body and soul, no difference. He has got Satchidananda body, whereas ours is material body, subject to every moment it is decaying. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara. So Krishna is telling many births you and I have passed, but what is the difference? I can remember all of them, but you cannot, a subduer of the enemy. Then Krishna is saying, Ajopi sanna vyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim svamadhisthaya sambhavam yatma atma mayā. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So when does Krishna appear? Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutthanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is decline in religious principles and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I manifest myself. Why does he appear? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. There are three purposes why Krishna comes: to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. I myself appear millennium after millennium. Then what is the nature of Krishna's birth and activities? Janma karma cha me divyam evāyaṁ yo. Very, very important verse. Janma karma cha me divyam evāyaṁ yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my birth and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. What is Krishna telling? One who knows the transcendental nature of my birth and activities. What sort of birth is Krishna's birth? Is it his birth is like our birth? We are forced to take birth by our karma. But Krishna is actually unborn. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san. And what sort of birth is? Janma karma cha me divyam. Divyam means transcendental. Our birth is not divyam. So this is what we need to understand. What is the difference between God, Krishna and us? We have material body. We are subjected to birth, death, old age and disease. But Krishna has got transcendental body. Not only Krishna remembers his own, all his births, he remembers all of ours also. Vedāhaṁ samatitani vartamanani Arjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu veda na kaśchana. He not only remembers his own, he remembers all of us past, present and future. Because he is Paramatma sitting in our hearts. And he knows everyone what we are thinking. So, Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam. Krishna's birth is not like our birth. Krishna's activities, although he looks like an ordinary person with 2 hands, 2 legs, he is completely supreme, original God appearing on this earth, Vrindavan. How fortunate. Not only is coming, he performs these transcendental activities. By hearing that katha of Krishna's activities and how he did Leela on this earth, all our karma will be burnt. That's what gopis, in Gopi Geet, gopis say, Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam kavi biriditam kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Śrīmadatam Bhuvi Grinanti Ye Bhurida Janaha. What are they telling gopis? The nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in the material world. So what is the real life and soul of the people who are suffering in the material world? The descriptions of Krishna's birth and activities. The nectar of your words and the description of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in the material world. These narrations transmitted by learned sages eradicate one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. The narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Certainly those who spread the message of Godhead are most munificent. So, and it is also said in this verse, did you get it, Prabhu? Okay, maybe I will read it. So in 10th canto, if you have phones, you can look in that. 10th canto, chapter 1, verse number 4. Very important verse. 10th canto is all about Krishna's transcendental activities. It is the summum bonum. There are 10 topics in Bhagavatam. Atra sargo visargascha sthanam poshanamutayah manmantarishanu kata nirodha muktirashraya. So 10th canto is Krishna's lotus face, smiling lotus face. First 2 cantos are pada, like the Krishna's lotus feet. Then 3rd and 4th cantos come up to the knee, then waist, then chest, then face. Krishna's lotus face, smiling lotus face is 10th canto. It is ashraya. It is samam bonam. It is ashraya of all the 9-10 cantos subject we read to understand this 10th topic, which is the most important ashraya. Samam bonam it is called. In 10th canto, all about Krishna's, the first few chapters, all about Krishna's childhood activities are described. And then later, Krishna's, how he spent in Mathura and Dwaraka. That is described. So 10th canto is full of nectar. That is what we should be actually aiming to fill our every moment of our life, hearing Krishna's transcendental activities from this Śrīmad Bhagavatam. So in that 10th canto, 1st chapter, 4th verse, it is said, Nivrittatarshe upagīyamanāt bhavaushadakṣotra manobhiramat ka uttamasloka gunānuvādāt pumam virajyeta vina pashugnāt. So it is said that glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. So glorification of the Lord is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from the spiritual master to the disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in false, temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. So who will like to hear about Krishna's glories? Who are very, very tired, who are not attracted to this temporary material glorification. Only those people, they get great interest to hear about Krishna's glorification. So in the material world, when we have some disease, we take medicine, right? Like if you are diabetic, or if you are blood pressure, or any heart problem, or thyroid, or whatever problem, we will gulp a medicine, right? But what is the real medicine we should be taking is bhavarog, like the material birth, death, old age. What is the medicine for that birth, death, old age disease? The medicine we should be taking is, here it is said that descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Hearing Krishna Katha is the real medicine we should be taking. When we are sick, we take so many different types of medications, right? The real medication we should be taking is descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. First of all, we have to understand what is the intricacy of this birth and death. Then only we can become serious in our spiritual life. We have to understand what is this birth and death. Birth, how painful is it? Have you seen any baby in the womb of the mother straight? Arched like this. And so little space in the mother's womb, and the child is like, if somebody puts us in a tight gunny bag and pushes and tight, very tight, will we be very happy? That is birth. And 9 months live in that small area. And small, there is pus, blood, and all this different, this thing. There are small insects biting this little baby, and baby is suffering like anything. And mother is eating all this chaat masala, pani puri, bhel puri, all these masalas, and the child is narak for the baby in the womb of the mother. Struggling so much, oh my God. Then if the soul is pious, he'll pray to the Lord, oh my Lord, why did you put me in this condition? I never ever want to enter in the womb of the mother ever again. I had enough of this suffering. Once come out, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. Have you seen any baby laughing when the baby is born? What does the baby do? If the baby won't cry, what will doctor do? Give a whack and make him cry. Why does the baby cry? I have come into this material world of suffering. But then the mother doesn't know what the baby wants. After coming out also suffering only. The baby is feeling kujali and feeling thirsty. The mother doesn't know what to give. She does give something else. Still there is suffering. So this is very nicely described in 3rd canto, 31st chapter, Lord Kapila teachings. 3rd canto, 31st chapter, right from the day of one of conception till the childbirth, what the child undergoes in the womb of the mother, when the fingers grow, when the hair grow, when the neck will be formed, when the child will feel hunger. Everything is very nicely described in 3rd canto, 31st chapter. So we have to understand what is the intricacy of this birth and death. Millions of scorpions biting one at one time. One scorpion biting only finish. Millions of scorpions, बिच्छू, 1000 बिच्छू एक बार काटती तो कैसा रहता है अपने को अनुभव, वो मृत्यु का अनुभव है वैसे. So birth, death, old age and disease. Old age you don't have to tell. Many people who are old, we can see what it is. If we sit, we can't stand. If we stand, we can't sit. We can't hear. Teeth feel falling loose. King Kulashekara praying in Mukundamala Stotra is praying Kapavata Pitta. King Kulashekara very nicely is praying to the Lord, oh my Lord, please give me death now. He is only 30-35 years, very young, very hale and healthy. His health is very good. Because his health is good, his state of mind is very good. So he is telling, please give me death now. If I have to wait for my natural death, which might be like later 70 or 80 years, all my bodily functions would have disrupted. My kidneys would have failed, my mucus, my lungs, everything will be filled with this cough, and I can't even say Krishna properly. Please give me death now, so that when my body is strong, healthy, my state of my mind is healthy. If my mind is healthy, I can think of your lotus feet and then enter into the stem of your lotus feet. If I have to wait for my natural death, which will be like 70, 80 years, how can I think of you? My body is so much giving problem. Because of that, my mind is not in a healthy state. How can I think of you? That is why Prahlad says, Kaumara charet pragno dharman bhagavataniha durlabham manusham janma tadapya dhruvamartadam. He is saying that begin devotion from the tender age of childhood. So that there is very many chances, practice makes man perfect. Because from childhood, if we are Krishna conscious, we are very, very fixed. When we are old, we are practice thinking of Krishna. Krishna says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru mame vaishyasi uttamam atmana matparayanaha. Krishna says 4 things in the Gita. What is that? Engage your mind always in thinking of me, number 1. Number 2, become my devotee. Number 3, offer your obeisances to me. Number 4, worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Krishna is telling this in the most confidential knowledge, last verse, which is the essence of the entire Gita. 4 things we have to do. What is that quiz now? Number 1, always engage your mind, always in thinking of me. Number 2, become my devotee. Number 3, offer your obeisances to me. And 4, worship me. By doing these 4 things, completely absorbed in me, surely will come to me, Krishna. What is the doubt? Krishna is also telling at the very end, Sarva dharman parityaja. What are the dharmas that we have to give up? Sarva dharman, abandon all varieties of religion. What are the dharma we have to abandon? Any dharma that stops us from surrendering to Krishna, that sort of dharma we have to abandon. We have to abandon that. Any dharma that stops us from surrendering to Krishna, sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam raja. Just surrender unto me. These two things we have to do. What is that? Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam raja. That is our duty. What is Krishna's duty? I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. What are we worried about? About our sinful reactions. Krishna is guaranteeing. What is the doubt? I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. All that we have to do is keep faith in Krishna's words and surrender to Him. There is no loss whatsoever. Bhakti is so powerful. Even little bit done itself will protect our human birth. Krishna says, Neha vikrama nashosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya. Swalpam means even little. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. In this endeavor there is no loss or diminution. Even a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. What is that most dangerous type of fear? What's that? Death is there, of course. Death is most. Yeah, that is there. Yeah, that is there. What is the most dangerous type of fear? Yeah, that is all there. Losing human form of life. The same lecture, if I go to zoo and give, what will happen? Will the animals be able to understand? No. So, if I tell same thing to animals, they cannot understand. Only human birth. Prahlad Maharaj says in Bhagavatam 7th canto, he says that only human form of life affords one a chance to return home back to Godhead. Therefore, do not waste your time for unnecessarily over-endeavoring economic development and all these things. Human form of life is very, very rare. And Krishna says, even swalpam apyasya dharmas, even little bit of bhakti we do, that will protect our human birth. If we become animal, very hard, ahara nidra bhaya maitanam cha samanyam etad pashubhir naranam dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesha dharmena hina pashubhi samana. Animals, they do only 4 things: eating, sleeping, mating and defending. If our activities are also same like animals, then what is the difference? They are 4-legged animals, we are 2-legged animals. Dvipada pashu, according to Bhagavatam language. So that is why human form of life has so much potential to understand about God. Who are we? Who is God? What is our relationship with God? What am I meant to do with this relationship? Jivera swarupa hoye krishnera nityadas. So all the scriptures are given so that they are like eye-openers for us. We have to take this seriously, and the most dangerous type of fear is losing the human form of life. Even little bit of bhakti done will protect. Krishna is so merciful, even to the demons he is giving liberation. Who are thinking of Krishna, like Kamsa thought of Krishna fearfully. He was 100%, he was 24/7 Krishna conscious, Kamsa. But unfavorably. Always, the moment he heard from the Akashvani that this 8th child of this Devaki is going to kill, right from that moment till he died, he was very Krishna conscious. But it was unfavorably, not anukul, pratikul. But still, Krishna gave him liberation. Putana came to feed poison to Krishna, but Krishna was so merciful. He saw her motherly attire. He ignored her attitude. So like that, Krishna is so, when to the demons itself he is giving so much mercy. What to speak of somebody who is doing with full consciousness, So, this is what human life we have to be very, do bhakti. Bhakti is very, very important. Like Krishna protect, even Arjuna asks in 6th chapter, if somebody takes to this process and do not finish, what will happen to him? One who has taken this process with all seriousness in the beginning and later desist due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection, what will happen to him? He is like a riven cloud with no position in his sphere. Krishna says that if somebody does short time, then they leave their body or they deviate, then he gives them opportunity of Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Brishto Vijayat. Either they'll be getting the birth in Brahmana family or a Vaishya family. Birth in a Brahman family or Vaishya family. These two are very good for us to, because Brahman family from the beginning there are nice samskaras instilled in consciousness, becomes very favorable to take up Krishna consciousness. And Vaishyas from the beginning they are very, very rich. They don't have to work hard, and the time that they can utilize for spiritual life. So these are the facilities Krishna provides those who do bhakti even for a short time and they deviate or they fall or they die or whatever. But if somebody does for a long time, like 80-90% of their life, then they die or like that, if such people are given an opportunity to be born in a transcendental family. It's a family of devotees who are pure devotees like Goswami families. Like example is Prabhupada himself, Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. They had the opportunity of being born in a transcendental family. How? So that they could very quickly, because of the last birth, they have done so much, very quickly they progress because the divine consciousness is there, and they very quickly progress and cleanse off all the contamination and they go back home, back to Godhead. These are the facilities very Krishna mercifully provides to those who do bhakti. So that is why bhakti is very, very savaipuṁśāṁ paro dharmo eto bhakte radhokshaje ahitukiya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. The sages asked what is the ultimate good for all living entities and what is the essence of all the scriptures. Please tell us. There is no time to read the elaborate scriptures and all. What is the essence of the scripture? Then the answer to that is savaipuṁśāṁ paro dharmo eto bhakte radhokshaje ahitukiya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto transcendent Lord. Such devotional service should be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. When we are doing something, we should not think, what will I get in return? That is called Kaitava Dharma. Dharma projahita Kaitavatra Paramo. Bhagavatam says completely rejecting religious activities that are materially motivated. This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth. So like that, this all scriptures are very, very important for us. They will open our eyes. So we come out from the dark to light, transcendental knowledge. Then in the last part of this chapter, Krishna very nicely glorifies what is this transcendental knowledge. Received in the disciplic succession. Tatvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So this is what so after getting this knowledge from self-realized soul, no more illusion in their life. Yajñātvāna punarmoham evāyaṁ shasi pandava ena bhutānya sheshāni drakshashyātmanyato mayi. So like that we come out of this illusion after hearing from the self-realized soul. Then it is said, apichedasi papebhya sarvebhya papakrittamaha sarvam jnānāplavena vrijinam santarishyasi. This transcendental knowledge, when we get, it will free us from all sinful reactions, just like ethaidamsi samiddognir basmasat kurute Arjuna jnanagni sarva karmani basmasat kurute tata. He says that as a firewood is burned by fire, similarly all the reactions of our fruitive activities will be burned by this transcendental knowledge. Very, very important to get this transcendental knowledge. So all the reactions to our work will be burnt by this transcendental knowledge. So those who are faithful, those who are not faithful, those who are faithful, they attain to the supreme abode of the Lord. Those who are doubtful, they again remain in this material world bound, and they have no perfection. Krishna says in 16th chapter as well, pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurashuna na shaucham na pichacharo na satyam teshu vidyate. They said those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done, neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. So they are always doubtful, they do not attain perfection, and they go on repeatedly come birth. Krishna says in 9th chapter 3rd verse, Ashraddadana Purusha Dharmasya Sya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. So faith is very, very important. Shraddha. When we don't have Shraddha, then there will be repeatedly come birth and death again. So faith is very important, that we have to be, we'll get by the Ado Shraddha, Tata Sadhu Sangas. Through Sadhu Sangha we get this Shraddha. Thank you all very much for your patiently hearing. Hope it made sense. If anyone has any questions or if there is any other session that goes on after this. Prabhuji, abhi koi session hai kya? Thank you all very much. Any questions if anyone has? And if I can answer, otherwise devotees. Please tell Prabhu, I couldn't hear it.
How can we attain the love of God by this process?
Ado Shraddha. When we are in the association of devotees, those who have faith, when we associate with them and hear Krishna Katha, hear from the pure devotees, will develop that faith. Faith is a very important ingredient, because without faith, even faithlessness is also faith only. Some people, they have no faith in some things. So even not having faith, they have faith in faithlessness. So like that, this faith is very important. We develop that faith by associating with devotees who have faith, and associate by, like a disease, like for example COVID. COVID was spreading so much, right? So when we mix with somebody who had COVID, we would get that infection like that. So similarly in bhakti, when we associate with devotees, we happen to get their qualities. So that is why this association is very important. If we associate with saintly people, Krishna says very nicely in Gita that Sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate. The association makes a lot of impact in our life. Hearing, Shravan, Kirtan, association, these things are very important. Those who have faith, by associating with them, we also develop faith. So that is what is my understanding. Yeah, there are all these processes. Ado Shraddha, Tata Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, then Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prema, like that. All these 9 processes are there.